What's going on, everyone? It's John here from Hot Take Hockey to talk about a potential swap between the Vancouver Canucks and the Anaheim Ducks, Loui Eriksson. So we're going to talk about all of it in this video. So if you are here and you're new, please subscribe to the channel, drop a like. Every like counts to get this video out here. If you want more Canucks fans, more Ducks fans here to talk about this potential swap, please drop a like. So Loui Eriksson, could he potentially be traded to the Anaheim Ducks for Ryan Kesler? So obviously it sounds really weird and interesting. Ryan Kesler, he was a Vancouver Canuck, but I'm going to go over an article, give someone a big shout out, and we're going to talk about it. So let's look at Eriksson's cap hit first. So Loui Eriksson, he's 34 years of age. He has 3 years left on his contract, $6 million cap hit, and his no trade clause is still in effect for this year until 2020-2021 when it becomes a modified no trade clause, and he would have to submit a 15-team no trade list. So regardless, whatever trade materializes with Loui Eriksson, he has to accept and waive his no trade clause. So $6 million for 3 more years. Obviously, it's a very high cap for this player at this point in his career. Ryan Kesler, 34 as well, but Ryan Kesler is probably not going to play another NHL game. He is already guaranteed he will not play this upcoming season, and he probably will not skate on an NHL ice for another game. So I think Ryan Kesler, we're not going to see him in an NHL uniform again, unfortunately, and for the Vancouver Canucks, this could be an option to put on LTIR, and that's where I'm going to look at this specific article from Harman Dale from The Athletic. So just going to give a couple sneak peeks of what the article was about. So the options are pretty slim in this vein, but the Canucks can still try applying a similar approach. Entered the Anaheim Ducks with Ryan Kesler. Kesler's already announced that he'll miss all of next season with injury, and it's very unlikely he'll ever play in the NHL again. Most big contracts nowadays are insured by 80% if they get put on LTIR, which means teams only have to pay 20% of the salary. This means that insurance will cover 16 of the $20 million left on Kesler's contract, leaving the Ducks to pay $4 million out of their own pocket for Kesler to sit on the sidelines. Eriksson, meanwhile, has $9 million in total salary left on his contract. If the Canucks retained 50% of his deal and traded him to Anaheim for Kesler, the Ducks would be on the hook for just $4.5 million total with Eriksson. Just like when with Columbus, they'd go wasting cash on someone who wouldn't play for them to virtually spend the same money on someone who will at least suit up and contribute in the bottom six. That's referring to the Nathan Horton and David Clarkson trade when the Toronto Maple Leafs traded Clarkson, who was playing, to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Nathan Horton, who was on LTIR. So essentially the Anaheim Ducks would be getting a roster player where the Vancouver Canucks would just be putting Kesler on LTIR. And then Vancouver benefits more than Anaheim here, considering that the Ducks would be taking on Eriksson's reduced $3 million cap hit for 3 years. That's if the Canucks would retain 50% of Eriksson's contract, meaning the Canucks would likely need to add a sweetener, but I can't imagine it being too high given the mutual benefit. So exactly. So if you look at, again, we're going back to the Toronto Maple Leafs, Patrick Marleau had to get attached to a first round pick. So you don't get it both ways. Either Eriksson gets attached to a high draft pick or prospect, or the retained cap hit, which would be a max of 50%. So this was just an example that Harman came up with. So Vancouver receives Ryan Kesler, 3 years at $6.88 million, placed on LTIR, and then Mike Condon from the Ottawa Senators. So this is a three-way, and it helps all three teams. Ottawa gets rid of Mike Condon, and the reason for that is Mike Condon is still owed about $3 million. So Ottawa would save about $1.2 million in this instant, because 20% would be 1.8 of Eriksson's contract. So retaining 50% on Vancouver's part, retaining 20% of Eriksson's contract on Ottawa's part, and Anaheim would only have 1.8 million against the cap for 3 years. I feel like Anaheim's benefiting the most here because they are losing that Ryan Kesler contract, and Loui Eriksson at 1.8 million wouldn't be the worst thing to play in a bottom six role. So I think Anaheim would be benefiting big time. I think maybe just cut out the middleman of Ottawa, or have Vancouver only retain about 20-25%, And I feel like Vancouver would be benefiting more. Yes, Anaheim would be paying around $3 million per year for 3 years for Loui Eriksson, but I still feel like that's not the worst thing ever for Anaheim. You're losing the Kessler contract, and $3 million for Eriksson is a lot better than 6. I think $3 million is very reasonable for a guy that will probably play on Anaheim's third line for most of the season. So, what do you guys think? Do you think Ryan Kessler could technically return to Vancouver? Yes, he would not suit up for another game most likely, but this could be a situation for the Vancouver Canucks where you acquire a guy, he goes on LTIR, you don't have to suffer the consequence of having Loui Eriksson just scratched at a $6 million cap hit. It just doesn't make sense. So the Vancouver Canucks, they have to take action. Do they attach a high draft pick or a prospect to Eriksson, or do they take the route of LTIR and follow the footsteps of what the Toronto Maple Leafs are doing and maybe what other teams might do if these bad contracts become a regular thing? But I do think teams are learning their lessons on signing these bad contracts out of free agency. I think whether you're seeing the Milan Lucic, the James Neal, the Loui Eriksson, you saw this past free agency, less contracts with big term were thrown out, and that's why I got like Jake Gardner still in the market, Derek Brassard still in the market. So less of those contracts are being thrown out, and I think that's a big testament to how these teams are learning the lessons of other teams' failures. So Loui Eriksson was a bad contract thrown out on July 1st, and now the Canucks are suffering the consequences, and LTIR definitely might be the direction for Jim Benning. So let me know in the comments. If you're new, subscribe to the channel, drop a like. Every like does count. This was John from Hot Take Hockey. Have a good one. Peace out.